Hey, podcast friends. This is Dr. Steve Hewlett with the podcast Simple Healthy Choices for Weight Loss, where every week we help people who have realized that as their health has been declining over the years, the number of medications they are being prescribed is increasing. We want to help you reverse this health path so you can live the vibrant, pain-free, and hopefully medication-free life you deserve to live. If you'd like even more information on this topic, you can go to Amazon or Audible and pick up my book, Your Plate is Your Fate. And if you think my book helps you on your new health path, please tell your friends and leave a review where you purchased it. Hey, everybody. Today, we've got a wonderful guest for an interview, and this is Lindsay Young. And you can find her at lindsayliveswell.com. And Lindsay is with Lindsay. And I really think you guys are going to love this podcast. This is all about continuous glucose monitors, or CGMs. So if we forget and say CGM, that's all it is, continuous glucose monitor. And this is a it's a new technique, but it's a way that you can measure your glucose. And I'm going to let Lindsay explain all this to you. And hopefully I'll ask the kinds of questions that you guys are asking yourselves. So Lindsay, thank you so much for coming to my podcast today. I really appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Hewlett, for having me. I would say still a little on the new side to the CGM technology. I've been using them for about a year with my clients, and my mind has just been blown with how powerful this tool is for actually promoting behavior change, which is really what we want. I mean, as an educator yourself, I'm sure it's super frustrating to have all of this amazing information and to be putting it out into the world. And, as a human who makes mistakes and struggles with my own, sometimes like, I know what to do. Why don't I always do what I know what to do? It's been so cool to have found this tool that's been so helpful for my clients and is relatively affordable, easy to understand. And I'm excited to see its use continue to be such a game changer for so many people's health.
So for people out here who don't know what a CGM is, exactly what is this? Is this a big machine you have to buy for your home, or what is this?
Yeah, so continuous glucose monitors, you may have seen people wearing them. I remember having friends who are type 1 diabetics and seeing little devices on the back of their arms and wondering what that was. And now I'm starting to see them pop up all over. But CGMs they're quite small. They are just little disc-like devices that have a tiny, tiny needle in the middle of them. So they don't call it a needle, they call it a filament because it's so thin. It's really, I think that idea of inserting a needle into you can be really scary, but it's so thin, it's bendable. Like when I've removed mine, I've kind of run my finger along it and it's very thin. But you basically insert it on the back of your arm. And what it does is it reads your interstitial glucose levels, which is directly translated to your blood glucose. And so it's able to provide you in real time, 24 hours a day, what's going on with your blood sugar levels. So in the past, most of us go for a yearly, or we should be going for a yearly physical, and we're getting our fasting blood glucose measured. And for a lot of us, that's the only representation we really have of where our blood glucose levels are at. And I know I've worked with clients who have said that for years, their doctors are telling them, your fasting glucose is climbing, you're in that pre-diabetic range, we've got to turn things around. A lot of times people don't know what to do with that information, but it's also only one marker of our metabolic health, that fasting blood glucose. So with the CGMs, we're able to really see, okay, every single day, what are your fasting glucose numbers? And then what kinds of patterns are we seeing throughout the day? There are lots of different types of CGMs on the market. I should say there are a few different types of CGMs on the market. And then there are a handful of different companies that use those sensors in order to help you interpret that data. So some of the popular ones are Levels. That's one that a lot of people have heard of. I've been working with a company called VERI, VERI. And so those companies take the information from the sensors and then provide a way for you to interpret that via an app. So you're able to see throughout the day what your blood glucose levels are, when they go up, when they come down, and then you're able to input your meals throughout the day. So you can put lots of information or a little information. You could put that you had eggs and bacon and avocado for breakfast. You could get as detailed as to say, I had 3 eggs and 2 pieces of bacon. And then you're able to see, okay, what was the result of that meal on my blood sugar? Like, how high was that postprandial peak after my meal? How long did it take for my blood sugar to come back down to baseline? And then I can speak to the app that I've been using with my clients. It gives such great feedback in that every meal gets a score. So you're able to look at your day and say, okay, this is what I had for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And this is how it's scored on a scale of 1 to 10. And we want to see 8s to 10s. Those are the meals that you had a good glucose response. Either your blood sugar didn't go too high, it didn't go too high too quickly, it came back to baseline within a reasonable amount of time. And so at a glance, you're able to really see what are the meals that are working well for me, and then what are the lifestyle impacts as well that are impacting my blood sugar, because you can put things in like a stressful event, you input your sleep, you input your exercise. There are over 40 different variables that impact our blood sugar, of course, food being the biggest one. So it gives such great feedback for you to be able to see exactly which foods are helping your blood sugar and are favorable for your health and your body, and potentially the foods and the lifestyle choices that are negatively impacting your blood sugar.
So if you're using one of these CGMs, is there anything that goes to like your phone or anything? So as soon as you eat a meal, you can immediately see what it did to your glucose, or do you have to wait till you're totally done and then send in your diary to this company and they'll tell you?
Yes, exactly. So you can scan your app at any time. Like you open up the app and then I keep doing this because I have one on the back of my arm. You just scan it up to the sensor. Your sensor can hold up to 8 hours of data. So you want to scan it, of course, right before you go to sleep at night. And then if you sleep over 8 hours, you will lose a little bit of data, but it's not much. And it's while you're sleeping. So you're able, you'll see a little gap and you kind of know what's happening there. So you can scan it every 10 minutes throughout the day if you want to really see in real time what's happening with your blood sugar. If you have a busy day, you're not able to scan for a few hours, you can just scan whenever you're available. And then you can input your meals throughout the day as you eat, or you can go back if you have a busy day and it's, 5 o'clock and you're like, okay, I know I had lunch at this time and this is what I ate. You can just still go back and put that information in and change the time. And then it will show you, it provides a timeline. So you're able to see exactly what was going on with your blood sugar. And then it will overlay the meals during that 2-hour mark. So you can see what's happening immediately after you start eating. It's usually about within 10 minutes that we'll start to see a change in blood sugar. And then you're also able to see, over the course of time as your body is digesting that meal, what's happening.
So when you say you can see it after a meal, do you mean like immediately I can eat a meal, scan it, and then look at my phone and it'll tell me exactly what my glucose is after that meal?
Exactly.
That would be so handy because people think, oh my gosh, there's so many different meals. But when you really look at it, not that everybody eats the same thing, but per person, you tend to eat about the same thing, right, every week. You tend to go out to the same restaurants. You tend to eat the same things at home. So it seemed like that'd be extremely important for you to see, oh my gosh, I had no idea that this meal was causing my glucose to go up so much, which as we know, the glucose is just part of it, because there's other things that make your insulin levels go up, and the insulin is really the main thing that we're looking for. And like you said, I think you said that that's kind of the next technology is coming up, is being able to monitor the insulin.
Yeah.
But as far as things that make your insulin go up, I know food is the major one, but are there other things that can also make your insulin go up?
Yeah. So, and just to touch on something you said real quick there, what is also really powerful about being able to see in real time is, let's say you do have an oops, right? And you kind of notice, oh, wow, this meal is making my blood sugar go up. Right away. So you can say, okay, now I'm going to go on a walk to help bring it back down. So you're able to take action immediately, which I think is a game changer.
Yes.
So different things that are going to impact our glucose levels. Sleep is a huge one. And I know we all tout the magic of sleep and how important it is. But I see that on my clients a lot, that if they have a night of poor quality sleep or poor duration of, shortened duration of sleep, that it makes it a lot harder for them to have more stable glucose the next day. Stress is a huge one too, that we see immediately increase blood glucose in the moment, but then also chronic levels of stress, where I'm seeing something interesting with a lot of my kind of high performing female clients, where their blood glucose will be in a great range when they first wake up, but then it pops up into the low hundreds without having had anything to eat or drink because their body is anticipating stress for the day and knows what's coming. So sleep and stress are two huge ones. And then exercise, of course. We'll see sometimes blood glucose go up with more intense forms of exercise, which I think is so cool to think, oh my gosh, our body's doing what it's supposed to do. That we have glucose in our muscles available for use. And this is kind of emptying the suitcases, right? Where it's coming out of our muscles for our body to use for energy during the workout. And then we see that drop afterwards where your levels come back down lower than they were before. And then even the low levels of exercise and just daytime activity where you're standing instead of sitting, or you're able to get up and get that 10-minute walk in on your phone instead of taking that call from a chair, and seeing that helping to lower blood sugar levels throughout the day as well. Just those little bouts of activity are so impactful.
Man, that'd be wonderful. What about a couple different questions? My mind's racing right now. One, I want to know about hydration, if you notice any difference with hydration, dehydration. And then also I was going to ask if there was anything that had to do with intermittent fasting. If you see a big difference, like people who have already converted over from being carb burners over to being fat burners, does that really reflect well on these CGMs? If you've got any clients that have been, that you really think are pretty good fat burners?
Yes. So the hydration question, yes, that's definitely one that we see play out with CGMs. It's been a little harder for me as a coach to see that because I'm on my clients all the time about hydration. So they are pretty well hydrated. So I don't necessarily see on their timelines where, they didn't drink water at all that afternoon and their levels were up. But when we look at the data, we definitely see the importance of hydration on glucose levels. And then as far as having that metabolic flexibility, I definitely see that with clients who are, especially with working on fasting windows. I always try to get my clients to start with a minimum of at least 12 hours. I mean, I know that you know this, that so many, what a high percentage of the population doesn't even fast for 12 hours between dinner and breakfast. People are in that digestion state all the time. So even just getting them to that 12-hour window between dinner and breakfast, we see that help with your fasting glucose and just glucose regulation throughout the day. And then one of the biggest things I see as far as meals go that impacts glucose negatively is this grazing we do throughout the day, where it's a couple bites here, a couple bites there, keeping our blood sugar levels higher, which we know then is signifying that presence of insulin. So our body's in that storage mode fat storage mode all the time. So I see with that intermittent fasting tightening that eating window, and I just try to work people in slowly. Like if we get 12 hours and you're feeling good, okay, can we get to 13? Can we get to 14? With women, I'm looking at where they're at in their cycle. When they're in their luteal phase, we might stretch that out a little bit because we want progesterone, right? We need carbohydrates for progesterone and we need to have a little less stress on the body. Having those actual meals is so important versus grazing and snacking throughout the day. So when you actually provide space between your meals for your blood sugar levels to go back down to baseline, and it's cool to be able to scan with your CGM and think, okay, am I truly hungry right now? Am I thinking that I'm going to eat because it's a habit or because I'm bored? And when you scan and see, I'm not back to baseline yet. Okay, do I really need to eat right now, or could I extend this fast out a little bit longer? I think is really cool to see.
I think that's wonderful. And that's some of the stuff that we've been talking about also on here is there's so many different reasons why people eat. And it's not because you're hungry. And even in the hospital, we were this way because I work in pediatrics. So when we had pediatric patients on the floor, that was one of the signs that we knew that they were finally turned around because they finally have their hunger back. It's like, oh, good. They're starting to eat. They're starting to get thirsty. They're starting to come back. They're starting to put blood back to their GI tract again. But with adults, you can't do that because adults, like you said, they just get up and think, I need to eat because it's habit, because they're stressed from being in the hospital, because they're bored. There's so many different reasons why people eat. And that's why I think this continuous glucose monitor is going to be a game changer because people really will see, oh my gosh, I guess I'm really not hungry. Maybe if I just distract myself for a little bit or go for a walk, like you said, walking is so important, but if they just do little things like that, all of a sudden they find out, oh, I forgot I was hungry earlier and I'm not now. And I think it's such a good awakening for people to see that with their eyes and their brains that maybe they shouldn't be eating as much as they do. I love that. Is there anything that you found? I've heard a lot of people talk about apple cider vinegar. Does that really make a difference?
It really does, especially with meals that are going to be higher in some type of carbohydrate or sugar. But even just in kind of your standard, paleo type, well-balanced protein, healthy fats, fiber type of plate, we see a tablespoon. I usually start clients with a teaspoon, but then work up to a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in water. Kind of the ideal window of time is 20 minutes before your meal or closer. But even if you're starting a meal and you're like, oh, I forgot, you can go have some apple cider vinegar and it will still help with that post-meal glucose, or even afterwards. You have a weak moment and someone brings dessert by and you have it and you're like, dang it. Having that apple cider vinegar, even following a meal, still positively impacts glucose and that it helps to bring it down. So that's been really cool. And
that's amazing.
I know. And it's the acetic acid in the apple cider vinegar. And I think apple cider vinegar has the best reputation because it's the best tasting.
Right.
But you can use any type of vinegar. Balsamic vinegar can be a lot higher in sugar. So it's definitely not one that I recommend, but you can use any type of vinegar. And then even adding vinegar to meals can really help too. So using it as a salad dressing or, just working it into your dish in some way will also help balance those blood sugar levels with the meal.
Okay. So even if you eat, say, 3 meals a day, it's fine to go ahead and do that with all 3 meals. It's not going to do anything.
Yeah. There's really no data to suggest that there's a downside to consuming that much apple cider vinegar.
Right. That is great. Another thing, and this may be out of your realm, I really don't know, but since we do know that stress affects people so much as far as their glucose, as far as everything in their lives, actually. But are there any certain techniques that you tell your clients if they're stressed out, something they can do? I'm assuming some kind of exercise, a walk or something like that. But is there anything else?
Yeah, I tend to point people directly to breath work because it is, I think what we see being the most beneficial is meditation and breath work. And meditation, sometimes people have a certain feeling about meditation when you say that makes them resistant to wanting to try it. And it's a little bit of a learned skill, whereas breath work is something that people feel like they're doing. So they're, doing something proactively. And when we are in charge of our breath, that sends signals to our brain that we are in charge of the situation. And it can help bring those cortisol levels and those stress levels down immediately in the moment. So I love the box breathing technique, which you might be familiar with, where you breathe in through your nose for 4 counts. So you count to 4 as you breathe in your nose, and then you hold for a count of 4, and then you exhale out your mouth for a count of 4, and then you hold that exhale for a count of 4. So it's these 4 4-second breathe in, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. So it kind of creates this box. And that immediately, it's cool if you have like an Oura ring or something like that and you're able to see your heart rate, how you see heart rate come down, heart rate variability increase with a breathing exercise like that. And it can be powerful to do that for even 2 minutes, 5 minutes. That's something that someone can do just in the moment, or even focusing on doubling your exhales from your inhales. So if you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4, and then exhale for 8, and just really focusing on those long exhales, that's another exercise that in the moment will help bring those stress levels down. So that's what I usually suggest is breath work.
That's great. Do they do it? How do they know it's working? Just because they feel their heart rate go down? Or does this also correlate to the CGMs in any way at all?
You can see this on CGMs where you will see blood sugar come back down. And of course, it's going to depend what type of stressful situation you're in. If it was something acute, like I almost got in a car accident type of thing. If it's, you're prepping for a speaking engagement and your stress levels are high, you might see, like you're on stage about ready to go on, you might see that CGM come down a little bit, but it's probably going to go back up when you're on stage speaking. So I think for some of that, like you're worried about a meeting that you have or an appointment, I have seen that on CGMs where we see that the blood sugar going up and then we see it coming back down. So, but it does depend on the circumstance.
I am excited. My wife and I, like I said, we don't have the CGMs, but we definitely want to. And we've been going to a lot of conferences like the ketogenic conference and the low carb conference and all these, and everybody's walking around with them. And we've really been dying to do this. We just didn't know exactly how to do it. Do you have to have a doctor's prescription to get this or?
No, and that's
How do you
what's
get?
very cool in the last couple of years is there are these companies where you can order directly through them. So VERI, again, VERI is the company that I've been using. I researched a handful and VERI was more affordable than some of the other ones, which was important for me for just accessibility for my clients.
Sure.
And so after trying it and really loving, so this is the only company I have experience with the actual app and the interface there. I just found it to be so easy for a layperson to, like, you don't have to have a degree in nutrition in order to get really great feedback from it. So that's what I've really loved with it is you can go onto their website and I have a coupon code I can get you. But
Sure. Yes.
so what they suggest is and kind of the best deal financially is to sign up for a quarterly membership. And so with that, you get 3 months of their app usage. And even if you don't have a sensor on, the app is really helpful because there's a lot of education that comes with it. And you can still use it to track things like your movement and your sleep and your stress levels and your food. And then with that, you get 2 sensors. And each sensor is used for 2 weeks. So you basically get a month of data. And you can use them back to back if you want, or you can space them out because a lot of people want to take a little bit of a break, right? You have to be in a space where you've got a little bit of bandwidth to be scanning and logging. And so not everyone wants to do that for a month straight. And maybe you want to try out some of the habits you've learned from your CGM usage and put those into play for a few weeks and then strap on another CGM to see what's improved. So with a quarterly membership, it's kind of cool that you have 3 months to use the 2 sensors that you have. And then if it's something you want to continue, then they will bill you again and send you 2 more sensors. But if not, it's very easy to cancel, which is what I did. I mean, at first, I just wanted a month of usage and it was very easy to cancel. And then they don't bill you or send you any others. And then later, if you want more, so I was like, after a while, I was like, okay, I want some more sensors. Then you can just go back on and order again. So it's pretty easy. They'll send you you have to fill out a medical questionnaire because they're basically filling a prescription for you. So you fill out a medical questionnaire and then it just comes to you in the mail. And then, like I said, they have a lot of education on the app so that you're able, like the more time you spend on it, the more you're going to get out of your experience because you can be, like I had a client who for a couple of weeks didn't input exercise because she just didn't kind of get that was a helpful thing to add. So then when I got her adding that, and then we would kind of see that represented in her blood sugar levels throughout the day. So the more you use it, the more you get out of it. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's kind of helpful to know right off.
So this is on the phone. So you have the CGM on the back of your upper arm, and then you have the phone, and you scan it whenever you want to. If you're getting ready to eat a meal, or after you eat a meal, or during a meal, or during exercise, or whatever, you scan it.
Yes.
And then right there on the phone is where you would type in what you ate, or what you drank, or what you were doing at the time.
Yes.
So you can see the glucose number right then, but then you can send all this data into the company and they can put that out on a graph for you and show you exactly these are the types of foods that did this.
Yeah, well, you're able to see on your app every day what your meal scores are, and you get a daily score. So the daily score, their algorithm is taking into account your movement because if you wear an Apple Watch or a Fitbit, you can sync that to it as well. And it will take into account your steps. If you have just like a pedometer that you wear, you can just manually input your steps. So you get a better score if you've had better movement throughout the day. It takes into account your fasting window, your space between meals, what those meal scores were. So you're getting a meal score for every meal that you eat. And then you're also getting a daily score. And then at the end of every week, it gives you great feedback about what your fasting glucose numbers are, and what that could possibly mean, or suggestions for lowering that. So it gives you so much information. And then the way the app is presented is just really easy to use and it kind of makes it fun. Like I've had a couple clients who have loved Weight Watchers and loved the Weight Watchers app because they say there's a gamification to it that feels really
right.
fun. And I'm like, I can't believe a 45-year-old woman is telling me she loves the Weight Watchers app because of the gamification. But I mean, we're only human, right? So we like seeing our score. We like pleasing the app, where I'm like, ooh, if I get another walk-in, I'm going to get a better score today.
Right.
So and I thought when I got my CGM at first, I was telling my husband, like, I want to try all these things. Like, I want to get up in the morning and go have a donut first thing just to see what happens to my blood sugar. But once I got it and I could see my daily score, I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to get a good score.
Right.
So it's really interesting how that encouragement drives behavior change.
Oh, I agree 100%. That's great. And just so you know, never heard the word gamification, but I guarantee that is now going to be in my vocabulary because I love that. All of life should be gamification.
Right.
Have you noticed, because on my podcast, I'm trying to explain to everybody how horrible processed food is. Anything that's in a box, bottle, bag, or can, what food manufacturers are putting in all this stuff, all the chemicals and everything. But it'd be nice for someone else to also say, do you notice a difference through the CGMs in your clients when they eat a carbohydrate meal versus a high protein meal versus fat meal? Is there a huge difference, or really it's not that big a difference between carbs and fat and protein on your CGMs?
Yes, 100%. So the meals that have a good balance of, like, I teach my clients to look for 4 things on their plate: protein, healthy fats, fiber, and color. And so when there are meals that have that balance, when we're seeing at least 30 grams of protein, when we're seeing fiber, especially from real food versus something that comes out of a package, when we've got those fats to help slow down the absorption of glucose, 100% we see those higher meal scores because the breakdown of glucose is slower. And what's been a little disheartening for me is seeing even some of these healthy foods, right? Like, I love Simple Mills almond flour crackers, right? They're made out of almonds. They are still a processed food that comes in a package.
Yep.
And they still break down faster than if I were having a handful of whole almonds. And
Right.
to see that on a CGM is very sobering, because you realize you're really, there are health claims on the front that make you feel better about yourself. But when you see the way those foods actually work in your body, you can't hide from that data. And then another thing I see that's super interesting is the order in which you eat your food and how big of a role that plays, even when you're eating real food. That if you sit down and have a meal of potatoes, salmon, and broccoli, and you eat all the potatoes first, and I experimented with this, much higher blood sugar spike than if you were to have your protein and fiber first and save anything starchy or sweet for the end of your meal. Or even that difference between having like dessert a couple hours after dinner versus having dessert right after a meal, or having a snack in the middle of the day that's rich in carbohydrates. I had a client who, had a really blood sugar stabilizing brunch. She was intermittent fasting. She got like a 15-hour fast. She had a beautiful lunch. It was Sunday afternoon. She sat down with her kids, had a few handfuls of popcorn. Blood sugar spiked up to 140.
Man.
And because she had this carbohydrate all by itself in the middle of the day. And it's one thing for me to say, don't have naked carbs, don't have carbs
Yes.
all by themselves. Now that she has seen that, she will never repeat that behavior because she saw that spike when she had those carbohydrates all by themselves.
Yeah, you just made my wife very mad. She does. And we don't do it very often, but she does. If we go to the movies, she likes to have a little bit of popcorn when you go to the movie. And not all the time. That's like a special thing, but I don't know if she's going to want to see what the CGM does to this now.
Yeah, but then maybe, and what I think is so empowering is, we live in a real life, right? Like, it's not that I'm never going to have almond flour crackers again, but if I know, okay, well, we can buffer this a little bit by,
Right.
What if I have like a tuna salad and then have those like a small portion of almond flour crackers with it? That does a lot better. So, I told my client, I was like, what if you had some turkey around some avocado and had a couple of those, right? Get at least 10 grams of protein in with your snack, and then had a smaller bowl of popcorn. We would not have seen that spike go up as much. So it's encouraging to know that you can modify things. You don't have to say goodbye to those foods forever,
Exactly.
but those little modifications that don't seem like that big of a deal. Like, does it seem like that big of a deal to have a little bit of protein and fiber before your snack? No, but when we see it on a CGM, it's like, oh, that does actually make a big difference.
Right. See, that's wonderful, because that's the other thing that I want people to know. If you really are, especially if you're pre-diabetic or diabetic, and we're talking about these, the other thing to really remember is you do not have to eat carbohydrates. You don't have to have them. If you're going to have them, stick with your non-starchy vegetables and stay away from food companies. The things that are in box, bottles, bags, and cans, they are created to make you hungry. They want you to keep coming back for more. It's a business. But that doesn't mean you have to put that in your mouth. So that's why I want to make people know this, even though we're gamifying the whole thing. I love that word. Even though we're doing that, this is your health that we're dealing with. And it really does matter. If your glucoses are remaining up with the types of activity you have, the type of stress level you have, the type of sleeping that you do, the type of activity, and definitely type of food that you eat, you need to do everything you can to keep that down. Because remember, when your glucose is high, your insulin goes high. When your insulin goes high, it forces your body to store fat, which means you are going to start storing fat in your organs. You're going to start storing fat everywhere. And this is when the medications start coming on and just get worse and worse and worse. So even though this is fun, and I love it being fun, and I love gamifying this thing, this is your health we're talking about. So it really is a serious thing that I want people to understand, that how important getting one of the CGMs could be for you, especially if you really don't have a grasp on how food and how all these other things affect your blood glucose. So just in the ballpark, because I honestly don't know either, in the ballpark, about how much is this for, like, if you buy for 1 quarter for 3 months?
Yeah. So
Just in the range.
I think what VERI's model is right now, and again, this is going to vary from company to company,
Sure.
but the model that VERI has right now, I believe it's around $275 for your 2 sensors for a quarter membership. So 3 months of membership.
Okay. And so if somebody wanted to do this, if they're like, oh, I want to get on and do this, do they just go to the computer, go to the website, VERI, or just type in continuous glucose monitors and see what comes up?
Yeah. And again, there are probably other companies out there that I'm just not as familiar with because I'm on the track with VERI. But yeah, I believe VERI's website is veri.com. So it's very easy. You can go on and order. I have a link on my Instagram that will get you $30 off your first sensor usage. There's also, they have options. Like if you start with a glucose monitor and you feel like you need help with it, like help interpreting your data, on VERI's website, they have coaches that you can work with, that you can hire. And then there's also an option for coaches to order sensors for you, and then they can see all your data on their dashboard. So in the past, when I would work with clients, they would have to send me screenshots of what they were seeing on their app. But now I have the option to just add them on my coaching dashboard. So I can pull up all their data throughout the day and I can see what's going on. I'm like, what happened at 2:00 today? And see their data and then help them interpret it. Because I do think it's so user-friendly, but there's just so much to blood sugar. And sometimes people, they want to see results faster. They want to get better feedback. They want help kind of figuring out how to structure things. So there's also all of those options for help if you need additional help.
And how do you do this as far as getting the coaching app where you can see your clients' glucoses?
Yeah.
Is that
so
hard?
When I do that, no. So I have a client who will sign up to work with me and then I order the sensors for them. And
Okay.
so, for example, so with my coaching packages, I just build the cost of the sensors into that. So they sign up for the sensors and the support from me, like all of my resources and recipes and all of that. And then I order the sensors for them. And then they are on my coaching dashboard. So when I go to my dashboard, I can see all of my clients. Their experience on the app is the same, where they're still able to see everything and have access to everything. But I'm also able to see it on my big computer screen and see all of their day and their weeks, and then also see, what their exercise was and what their meals were and when were they sleeping and did they have any stressful events and all of the other things that you can input. So as a coach, it's been awesome because I'm able to provide very specific feedback and things that they might not have understood. Like, I had a client yesterday who woke up, her blood sugar was in the mid 80s, beautiful, throughout the morning. She was at 85. She had a cup of coffee and her blood sugar went up to 128 from the caffeine. So she's really working towards autophagy and wanting to do intermittent fasting because of the health condition she's working on. So unknowingly with her coffee, she is, she's trying, I'm like, this is not a clean fast for you, because even though you didn't have any calories, the caffeine, there's some type of a cortisol response there, where for you, your blood sugar went up with caffeine, which I see in a lot of people. It's probably half the clients I work with. Some of them, they have a cup of black coffee, the line stays even. Others, cup of black coffee, that line goes up. So to have that, she wouldn't necessarily have understood that from looking at her own data. But I'm able to say, okay, for you, having caffeine on an empty stomach is that's not getting you the results that you're wanting from that clean fast. So let's try decaf, or let's try adding some coconut oil to that, or let's just put your coffee after breakfast and move your dinner up earlier to elongate your fast. So it's just nice to be able to troubleshoot with people.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I'd never heard that about caffeine doing that. It makes sense as far as a cortisol rush or anything. I'm also curious on the caffeine, because I know caffeine is an extremely long half-life. It stays in the body for a long time. That's why if you're, the other part of sleeping well is knock off all your caffeine early, like 8 hours, at least 8 hours before you go to bed.
Yeah.
Do you see with someone who drinks caffeine, do you see a high glucose response for an extended period of time? Does that vary with your clients, I guess?
That then gets harder to tell because there are so many other variables throughout the day. But it gets hard. Once caffeine is intermixed with food, it gets hard unless someone's really willing to have some days where they go without caffeine, then we can get a clear comparison. But it's so much more obvious when we have caffeine by itself to see, okay, there was nothing else. There was no carbohydrates or sugar involved in there. It was just caffeine. And then up went that blood sugar.
Oh, this is interesting. I love all this stuff. Is there anybody in particular that you like to listen to, somebody that you've gotten a lot of your information from? And there are a couple of people that you think would be somebody good if somebody wanted to learn about any of the stuff that both you and I are trying to teach everybody? Who do you like to listen to?
Yes, there is a fabulous book called, let me make sure I get the title correct, The Glucose Revolution. And I feel like she's French. I do not remember her name. But
Sorry, I didn't mean to spite. I didn't mean to just throw that on you.
So Glucose Revolution is great. I think her Instagram handle is Glucose Goddess, and she provides amazing, actionable hacks, tips, resources. She shows a lot of graphs, which I think I'm such a visual person. So to see, she'll show 2 graphs, one of someone having a banana by itself versus a banana with almond butter, and seeing like the presence of that, like having fat with your carbohydrates, how that slows down the absorption of glucose. And her book, Glucose Revolution, is also really easy for just anyone to understand and implement a lot of the advice she has. I also really like Kelly LeVeque. And she has a couple different books. I think Body Love is her first book, where she talks a lot about glucose and blood sugar. And then for kind of my menopausal clients, I really like Dr. Mindy Pelz. And she has a book that has come out recently called Fast Like a Girl. And as you know, like men and women are so different. And most of the fasting research has been done on men, right? Which makes sense. Like men are so much easier to put into a study because they don't have fluctuating hormone levels.
Right.
But like when you put women in a study, we mess everything up. So she, I think, has done the very best research on women and how our approach to metabolic health looks a little bit different. So I know I've talked to a lot of women who follow they'll do something with their husband, right? Like they both do keto or they both start intermittent fasting and their husband drops all this weight and they're like, What's happening with me? So, we're just factoring in hormones differently. So I really like Dr. Mindy Pelz for that.
Okay, that's wonderful. And I guarantee my wife will be getting that because it's the same thing. Just like you said, she's already noticing, and a lot of the clients that we've been talking with do the same thing. And that's a big problem. The women are always talking, why is my husband losing so much weight? And I need to read more on it, all the different ways the hormones affect things also, because I think more along the greater percentage of muscle mass, so the men can in general tend to handle a lot more of a glucose load and stuff like that because of the muscle mass. But the hormones are huge. And that's where, especially when you're premenopausal, I feel so sorry for you guys. I really do. It's crazy what your bodies go through. And I so admire you guys for doing that. But I think that's a very important thing for women to know. Don't be frustrated. If you know you're eating correctly, if you know you're getting sleep, you're getting the exercise, you're eating correctly, you take care of your stress and the fat just isn't coming off, don't worry. Don't stop that. Keep doing what you know you should be doing. And it will. It'll take care of itself in time. Don't give up.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see, there was one other thing I was going to ask you. Is there any question that you think I should have asked that you think everybody needs to know?
I think so. I think we went over a lot of the basics. I always get a lot of questions about the application. Does it hurt? How long does it take? And all of that is super easy. When you get your CGM, they send you the alcohol swab. They send you step-by-step instructions with pictures. So, application just takes a couple minutes and they kind of walk you through everything on the app as well and getting everything synced. So those are questions that I sometimes get. You can wear a CGM, obviously in the shower, swimming, sauna, cold plunging, all of those things, you can wear it. I had a client who had an MRI. She had to take it out for an MRI. So that would be a situation where you can't wear one. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's kind of important to know.
And then I don't remember if I asked you this or not. I don't remember the answer. Once you put it on, how long does that stay on before you remove it?
So each sensor lasts for 2 weeks.
2 full weeks. You just leave it on
14,
continuously.
14 full days. And it will notify you. It'll say like, you have 1 day left. You have 2 hours left. You have 15 minutes left. Make sure to scan one more time before it's done. And then you get the sensor, you apply the sensor. It has like tacky, sticky tape. So when you plug it on, it sticks to your arm, and then they provide a sticker that goes over it that kind of helps so that you don't catch your edges, and it provides a little bit more waterproof protection. And so then when your 2 weeks are up, you just kind of peel that off like a Band-Aid.
Okay. And then you say you'll initially get 2 sensors, and you can use those for any 2-week periods throughout that 3-month period. But if you want more, you contact the company and they'll send you more. Is that at a discounted amount, or are you paying that?
Yeah, I think you do. I think it's $90 for, I can't remember if that's for 1 more sensor or for 2 more sensors, but you could order as many as you want.
Okay. Let's see. I was trying to think. And I totally forgot at the beginning of this. We're sitting there talking, and I didn't even tell anybody who you actually are and how they can get a hold of you. So this is Lindsay Young, and she is a certified transformational nutrition coach, and she's certified strength and conditioning specialist. She lives in Boise, Idaho, which is how I found her, because she lives by my son. And she specializes in helping busy women develop a simple nutrition and lifestyle plan to create optimal metabolic health and energy. And Lindsay's approach to wellness focuses on a real food in a real life context, helping our clients develop a modern approach to a healthy lifestyle that is sustainable and joyful in their homes and out in the real world. And I think that's wonderful. And we've just kind of met mainly through my son, Skylar, but this is the first time that we've actually been able to talk back and forth without going through emails and texts and everything. And it's great finally getting to meet you. And I'm sure we're going to do more in the future as well.
Yes, this has been such a treat. I was just going to say, after having read your book and heard so much about you through Skylar, it's really fun to get to be face to face.
Yeah, this is great. And thank you so much for doing this. I really, really do appreciate it. And is there any last thing that you'd like to tell everybody that we haven't talked about?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm always open to any other questions. Again, I'm just about a year into this CGM world. It's still pretty new technology. It's so cool to see where this direction of kind of precision medicine is going. But I'm always open to answering questions and just providing as much feedback as I can based off of my experience. I spend, kind of as far as social media goes, I spend most of my time on Instagram, and I'm at lindsay.lives.well. My website is lindsayliveswell.com, and there are ways to get in touch with me there as well.
And remember, Lindsay is Lindsay.
Yes. The less common spelling.
That's right. That's what you need. Be unique.
Yes.
and make gamification out of your whole life.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining me today. This has been wonderful. And I really hope people listen. And I guarantee my wife and we're going to be getting these CGMs because we really want to do this. And I think this is the future of health, because we've got to realize how horrible sugar and insulin is. And sugar is made from carbohydrates. And so you're going to see for your own self how this works. Yeah. So Lindsay, thank you so much for joining me today. And I guess we will, maybe we'll be meeting soon.
Yeah. You're coming to town soon, I hear.
Yeah. We're going to be moving him at the end of this month. So that's going to be quite the trip, because we decided to drive instead.
Oh my goodness.
There's so many good podcasts out there to listen to. It's like, let's just use this as some educational time.
Good for you. Yes. Well, hopefully we'll get together while you're here.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, thank you so much. And we will talk to you guys on the next podcast. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button below and be sure to tell someone else who may want to change their health path as well. And don't forget, you can also purchase my book, Your Plate is Your Fate, on Amazon or Audible. And if you do, please leave a review.